Hello, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you could call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I'm going to get started today on the stats. I've got what's going on for the week and also for the month. And so obviously when we're looking at the month, it gives us a lot better idea in regards to what's going on. I also have some predictions in regards to what's going to happen in 2025 and 2026. So that's all going on and everything. So there's a lot of great stuff that I'm talking about, not just stats. I've got some other things up my sleeve and everything as well to talk about. But overall, in looking at everything, the prices are actually up this year over last year. And when we're looking at that, so, and that's what the prediction is as well. So if you're out there on the fences holding off thinking, you know, things are going to get better in regards to pricing and that kind of thing, that may not be the fact. And so I'm just going to go over all that good stuff with you. But last week there were 390 homes that sold, 378 the week before. So we're kind of normal when it comes to that. The median price of single family homes is at $410,000, which is down a little bit from the week before. And the inventory actually increased by 61 to bring us to 8396. So with that, 4.9 months of inventory, which is a normal market between 4 and 6. So we're right there for single family homes. When you're looking at under 250,000, there's only 2.91 months of inventory. Then we're kind of across the board pretty average. We're a little low between 300 and 400, but and then when we go to 400 to 500, they're at 5 months of inventory, 6 months from 500 to $1 million, and 10 months over $1 million. But there were 45 houses that sold under 250, 27 between 250 and 300, 108 between 300 and 400, 75 between 400 and 500, 114 between 500 and $1 million, and 20 of them over $1 million. So in my opinion, the reason that I tell you this every week is so that you can see that in your price point, there are homes that are selling. Now, these stats come from Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Lake County. So not all of the counties in Central Florida, but a good number of them in regards to what's going on. Now, the list to ask price ratio is at 96.86. Under 250 is at 93.1, over $1 million is at 94.27, and then everything else is in the 96, 97, 98 range. Actually, in 400 to 500, it's at 98.71, so not a lot of room. Days on the market in houses is sitting right now at 69 overall. So that's kind of up a little bit in regards to what's going on. Then looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 112 additionally that sold last week, up from 103 the week before. And that price point is at $268.5 as the median, which is kind of more of a normal rate. It was up a little bit higher the week before, and the week before that it was even higher, like close to 300,000. So, you know, between 250 and 275, I think is kind of where we're at. So 268.5, we're kind of right there in the middle. That inventory increased by 30 and is now at 4418. So when you're looking at how all of that shakes down, the months of inventory in condos, townhomes, and villas is in a buyer's market at 9.1. And under 250, we're at 8.3. We've got 11.6 in 250 to 300. 8 months for 300 to 400, 12.9 for 400 to 500, 18 for 500 to $1 million. And there was 3 that sold over $1 million, so they're only 1 month of inventory. But last week, we couldn't even tell you because there wasn't anything that happened there. So, like I said, these are just a weekly stats, but it gives us a really good idea. The list to sale price ratio is at 97.3, so actually a little bit higher than the single family homes, but it kind of gives you an idea. And the days on the market on condos, townhomes, and villas are at 77 overall. Now, the thing that I find really interesting, I was looking at a couple of condo developments this week when I was working with people, and one of them, both of them that I were looking at this week were in Kissimmee. Parts of Kissimmee. I was looking at one in Celebration, and I was looking at one in Story Lake, which Story Lake is a recently built subdivision and everything over there. And it basically, a lot of those the area that I was looking at was a short-term rental community. So there are a lot of properties for sale in that Story Lake compared to the Celebration condos. So in the Celebration condos in this development, there were 4 on the market. And I'm talking 2-bedroom, 2-bath, so it was very specific. And there were 6 of them that have sold in the last 6 months. So that inventory obviously is looking pretty good. There were 6 of them that sold, so about 1 a month, and there's 4 of them on the market, so 4 months of inventory. But in Story Lake, when I was looking over there, in the condos, there were only 2 of them that have sold in the last 6 months, and there were 16 of them on the market. Now, you might go, wow, that's really a big difference. That's why I say all the time that real estate is very personal. It's very local. And so you have to be looking really at exactly what's going on. And one of the things is in that Story Lake development is that they were built since 2020. I mean, they were built, I think 2022, 2021, 2023, some of them, but pretty recently. And what has happened, and what sometimes happens in new communities, is that after a couple of years, people figure out, oh, this really was the right place for me, or it wasn't, or whatever. And so a lot of people are deciding that they wanted to do something else than what they did. And that's very common in a new home community. Many times you're going to find after a few years that a lot of them go on the market, and because people are getting situated in, I liked it, I didn't like it, or whatever. And so, they're making that decision. The other thing that is a big deal about that is a short-term rental community versus a long-term rental community. And so when you're looking at the difference between that obviously makes a big difference as well. And, in that short-term rental community, there's a lot of people that own them that are from out of town that maybe thought they were going to come here a lot more often than they did. Or they might be sitting there that they're going, okay, I'm looking at, the income that I thought I was going to make and I'm not making, and all of that kind of stuff, because when they did it, it was based on this could happen. And now we've got the real, this did happen. And so, when you don't have that history, there's always somewhat of a chance that you're taking to know what's going to happen. And basically, it does take some time to build up an Airbnb business. It's not like you just put your property out there and that you're automatically going to get it fulfilled. And so it does take some time to get that going. So a lot of times it takes a couple of years. Sometimes what I've found with people that do have those short-term rental communities, that if you've got a property manager managing the whole thing, your income is going to be less than if you jump into it as well. And what I found many people do is that they have a property manager that's finding quite a few of the Airbnb type people, and maybe they're putting it on Airbnb, and then they'll put it on VRBO, that will bring in an extra 10, 20, 30,000 on VRBO that they weren't getting on Airbnb, and that will make all the difference in the profitability. So when you're looking at those kinds of properties, it definitely makes a difference in regards to what you're doing. And a lot of people were purchasing them, thinking that they wanted to have a second home and that they were coming here, and then they realized they didn't come as often as they wanted, or or something like that. So there's a lot of variables that go into it, and you have to look at it. So looking at the overall stats gives us an idea, but it definitely doesn't tell us the whole picture, which is my point. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I talked last time saying that we were going to be going over basically the stats from the month before. And so I'm happy to do that as well right now, going over that. So basically that's my next step in regards to what I'm going to be going over here today. So when we're looking at the stats and what they're doing, basically from month over month is what we're looking at, and year over year. So when I give the stats, basically when we're going over the weekly stats, that is totally basically that we're going over the stats that are just for a week. And so you can't really see a lot of trends. It's like I bring in the trends because I know what they are, and we've been talking about them and that kind of stuff. But when we're looking at year over year or month over month, that really gives us a really good idea in regards to what's going on. So looking at February of 2025 is that the average price was $486,064. The median price was $385,000. Now you might be saying, hey, Laura, just in the last segment, you talked about the median price being about $410,000. And I also talked about the median price of condos, townhomes, and villas being in, like 260, 270, somewhere in that range. And basically, this is everything all together. So like I like to talk about a local market when I'm talking to you about your specific real estate, we're talking about all of the 4 counties in Central Florida that our stats come from and everything. Again, that's Osceola, Orange, Seminole, and Lake. But we're just looking at that, and this is everything all glommed together. So when we break it down and we're showing that there's, 8 months of inventory when it comes to the condos, townhomes, and villas, and 4 of the single-family homes, you can see that it makes a big difference if you would break these down further, which I do when I'm meeting with, sellers or buyers or whoever is looking at real estate to know that you're in the ballpark and looking at the right thing. But the good news year over year is for sellers is that the median price went from $377 to $385, which is a 2.1% increase. So we're not having a huge increase year over year, but we are having an increase. So I think that is something that that makes sense and everything like that. Basically, when we're looking at year over year, I actually have back to 2023, and we were at $358,000 as our median income, our median price property in February of 23. In 24, it was at $377,000, like I just mentioned. And in 25, it's $385,000. So even though the interest rates have gone up and been pretty stable in that time, the rates are the prices are still going up. So the interest rates in February of 23 overall were 6.36, 6.55 in February of 24, and 6.59 in February of 25 is basically what we're looking at that. Now, the months of supply, that's where we have the big difference. February of 23, we had 2.48 months of inventory. February of 24, we had 3.95, and now we have 6.76 months of supply looking at the full month in regards to what we're going by. Basically, when you're looking at the average prices, they have changed as well. They were at $438,375 in February of 23. Then they were at 448,291 in February of 24. In February of 25, it was at 486,064. So, that also is showing that we are definitely, going up year over year and all of that kind of good stuff. So when you look at the month over month, basically one of the things that I did want to talk about too is the number of properties that sold. Basically, that's the other thing that I wanted to, talk about. And basically, in February of 23, there were 2,240 properties that sold. In 24, there were 2,174, so a little bit less. And in February of 25, it was down to 1,837. So that's down basically 15%, which is a big decrease. Now, I was a little bit concerned about that if you listen to my shows in January, but I see that we are bouncing back in the last few weeks in regards to what's going on there. So I'm not near as concerned when it comes to that. When you're looking at month over month, the number of properties that sold went up 21.3%. In January, there were 1,514 properties that sold and 1,837, like I said, in February. The inventory basically from month to month went from up 6%. It went from 11,697 properties to 12,411. Basically, when we're also looking at it, our average sales price went down a little bit. It was at $492 in January. It's at $486 in February. But the median price went up from $375 to $385. So we're about the same there. One more thing to notice is the average days on the market year over year was at 57 in February of 24, and it's at 76 today. So those are things that you might want to just, be aware of and all of that kind of good stuff. One of the things that I was looking at in the last 5 years, home prices nationwide have risen 47%. And in Florida, it's up 71%. We had a really huge increase, after the pandemic. We've kind of stayed pretty similar in the last few years. So we're seeing minor increases, but they were still increasing. And so they are finding that is a good thing. That the prices have gone up quite a bit in the last 5 years. So in my opinion, what has happened is that we've just kind of, gotten to that point where they were, a little bit higher maybe than they should have been, but instead of falling, they've just kind of stayed where they are and have those incremental growth. And so I think that's good. One of the things that you might want to know as a homeowner, that they find that the homeowner's median net worth for 2025, this is an estimate, is $430,000, whereas a renter's median net worth is only $10,000. So it does make sense to have homes if you're looking to, to do that. What they expect in 2025, this is from the National Association of Realtors, of what they expect the market to do, is they expect that existing home sales will be up 6% year over year. That's the amount of properties that are selling. New home sales, they expect to be up 10%. The median home price, these are national figures, but they expect it to go up 3%, which is kind of a normal thing. They expect the mortgage rate to continue to be at about 6.4 and about 1.6 million job gains. Now, when you're looking at 2026, they expect the existing home sales to go up 11% versus 6% in 25. They expect new home sales to be at 5% instead of 10% in 2025. The median home prices, they're expecting them to go up 4%, and the mortgage rate will be at about 6.1%, and jobs gains will be 2.4 million. So if you're looking and saying, well, I'm going to wait for the prices to go down to purchase a home, this might not be the right time for you to do that. It looks like in the next 2 years that they're expecting housing prices to go up 7%, the interest rates to change just slightly. So you can always refinance, which is what we always are talking about, that it might be a good season or a good thing for you to do that. But basically, when it comes down to it, you want to make the right decision for you and your family, and that's what we're here to help you do. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was looking we were talking a little bit in the last segment where I was saying that the National Association of Realtors, economists, and everything have come up with the homeowner's median net worth, the estimate at being $430,000 versus a renter's median net worth is at $10,000. So I think that that's something that you would want to consider, look at, be aware of, and everything when it comes down to it to decide, what's the best thing for you to do. One of the things that I was looking at this week is that there was an article that came out that said about 900,000 Floridians seek housing that they can afford. Many pay over 30% of their monthly income on housing costs, and that's with renting. So Florida's cost-burden renters include 123,738 people in Lake, Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, which make up about 30% of all renters in the region. So we have a construction boom that in 2023 in Florida. This is not just us, but there were 138,000 new single-family homes and more than 50,500 new apartments to the state's housing inventory. But the problem is our median wage in the Orlando metro area is $45,000, and earning that you should pay about $1,100 a month for housing, but there are fewer and fewer choices at that rate. And for Orange County, added more than 77,000 rental units in the last decade that cost more than $1,200 a month. The most affordable housing has gone down, even though the affordable supply has gone up. And basically, there is one complex that's new in Orlando that opened in 2022, and it advertises studios available at $1,870 a month, and two-bedroom units are going for about $2,400. So people who might have bought a house before are renting and competing with people who might be a little lower down on the income scale. And so housing prices in Central Florida hit a record high in 2024, as we all know that I was just talking about that and that kind of thing too. So basically, it's like, what is the solution? And for investors, you're usually sitting in a really good place, especially if you have a single family home that you want to rent out. But the thing is that you need to be aware and not be greedy when it comes to that. I was talking to a couple of homeowners earlier this week, and they said that they wanted to rent out their place and everything. And for one of them, I said, I looked at what the rents are going for in that area, and they were renting for $2,000 to $2,100 is what the properties have been renting for. And they told me that they wanted to get $2,400. And so that's what they're trying to get. So obviously they're not getting a lot of calls. They're not getting people that are interested in it because the rental rate is at that, $1,900 to $2,000, $2,100 on a good day. So basically, when it comes down to it, if you are going to be, offering rental units, in my opinion, you need to be right at the market, because there are a lot more properties that are available today, and definitely at those higher price points. I was talking to another lady who has a single family home that she wants to rent out, and it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home with a pool and everything. And she wants 24 to 2,500, for that property. And that's also that's in Kissimmee as well. And, the properties are not going for that price. If she would offer it for like 2,200, I think that she would get it rented pretty quickly. And the thing that you have to realize, if you're offering a property at 2,400 and you go a whole month without having somebody in there, then guess what? That means that that's $200 a month that if you were offering it at 22, you would have somebody in there and get that rocking and rolling. The other thing that most investors would be interested in knowing is that the average time that someone is in a rental property is 28 months, I believe, is what it is right now. So if you find somebody and they're in there, and they like it, they're going to stay, and they're going to stay at least 2 years, if not a little bit more. But I find a lot of people, they look at the cost of moving and all of that kind of good stuff. And so they will take the excess rental property, they'll take the excess increase in rent and stay in there. There's one person I know that has a rental property, and it's a house. And basically, when they got into this house 4 years ago, it was $1,750. Then the next year, it went up to $2,150. Then the next year, it went to $24. Then the next year, it went to $24.25. So they realized they were kind of at the top, really, and way overpriced, when it came to that. But that's really pretty steep rental increases. I don't think that property vacant would get that $24.50 today, but it's already got the tenant in it, and so they're just like saying, hey, we're going to stay here and stuff like that. So that wasn't and isn't a property that we manage, but basically that was what the owner did, and everybody agreed. So that's what it is. But those are the kind of things that were really going on in the last few years in rental in our area. And so as a result of that, there might be somebody out there that's looking for that 2,400, but if they would settle on the 22, they would find a really good renter and they would stay there for years and years. And I think that that's really what comes down to it, and that kind of thing too, is that if you are a homeowner, if you're making money on it and you want to keep the tenant and they're a good tenant, then that might be something that you do. There's one owner that I work with all the time and everything, and this is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house with a pool. And basically, when he bought it in 2010, he got a really good deal on it. He was getting $1,400 month in and month out. The tenant that's in there, he really likes. He knows that the market rent on that property is $2,000, $2,100, $2,200, somewhere in that range. And he did increase the rent a little bit, but he just increased it to $1,650. So, he increased it a little bit, which the tenant knows that they can't go out there and find something cheaper, but it kept it so that the tenant is happy there. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. And I think that when it comes down to it, everybody's different in regards to what they want to do. But, it's like when you look at it, if you're sitting there with a month or two empty, even to get that bigger price, you've lost it for the first year. And how long is that person going to stay there? So if you do have someone that's good, that's paying their rent on time, that's taking care of the property, maybe it's worth it not getting that rent from it, because you're still getting a good return on the investment on it, and you're creating a win-win situation for everybody. And when that tenant does move, if they do, then it'll go up to market rent, and they'll make up for it, by losing a month rent by the increase in rent. But basically it's a really good, situation, for that person. And, it's become a win-win situation. So when you're looking at it, with the average increases are going to be 3 to 5%, say a year, probably is what it's going to be in the next couple of years. You're going to have an increase on your investment more than likely. as time goes on. And if you can get someone to pay the payment for you, then you're doing really good. So I think my word of advice is don't be greedy, and you can, get everything that you want to when it comes to investment, and we can help you obviously do that. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of things that are going on, trends that are new a little bit to the market. And one of them is kind of what the Generation X home buyers are looking for. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about was if you would to be purchasing a home with someone that is not a family member or something like that. That's becoming more popular today. So I'm going to be talking about those two things. So starting out, I'm going to talk about the home buyers and what their trend is of what they're looking for. And some research shows that many potential Generation X home buyers in Florida want some sort of active lifestyle communities as retires, but without the 55 age limit, 55 plus age limit. So basically what it comes down to is that they're looking for active lifestyle amenities and programming. And so there are a couple builders that are actually building those here in Central Florida. And basically, there are over 2,300 homes that are being built right now by one builder alone without age restrictions and that kind of thing. But in addition to that, there are a couple of communities that already are built they were built in like 2005 that had this. So basically, what this means is that what they did is that they had a lot of the same amenities that they do in those 55 plus communities. So they might have like a Pilates course or some class or something like that. They've got multiple exercise classes. They've got people that get together that like theater. They've got people that get together that like to play cards. If you like to, do crafts, maybe it's doing pottery or something like that. But, all of those different activities are available within your own community. And so there are new homes that are being built right now. I looked them up that are in Kissimmee and St. Cloud. There are also some in Orlando, and I'm sure there's some on the north side as well. But basically, that basically what it comes down to is that there are some people as well that are the 55 plus that would like to live in that kind of a community, but they don't want to do the 55 plus because they know that they might have their grandkids at some point in time and want to have them to be able to be there more than a couple of weeks at a time. And so there are definitely some abilities to have those kinds of lifestyles if you are younger and that's something that you want. So the communities might include dry cleaning services, private concerts, wine clubs, dog walking, and many more resort style experiences. And they, some of them are actually offering active adult floor plans and larger homes for families with multiple generations, including families with children. So it's kind of, I think it's something to come in the future that it exists. And like I said, there was a community that existed. And it's actually in the Lake Nona area since 2005. And I think maybe it was started even before that. But basically, they've got that like an active adult type of atmosphere there, that there's plenty of stuff to do. You get to know your neighbors. And if you're interested in stuff, you don't have to go far away. Everything's right there. And then there's another one that I'm aware of in Kissimmee and a couple of other ones in Orlando as well. So basically, if that's something that you're interested in, then let me know. And I can definitely help you with that. Now, the next thing that this was a question that was asked of two people that were dating, should they buy a house together? And but then I think it goes beyond that there might be like a best friend or somebody like that you might want to purchase a home with. And so unmarried couples can successfully buy a home together with proper planning. And so this is not just couples, but other people as well that you might want to do that. But what's important about this is that you would want to have a co-ownership agreement that would clarify responsibilities and protect both parties. And so basically what this article suggests, and I think it's a really good idea, is that whenever people are not married to each other, buy property together, I recommend drafting a written agreement that outlines what each person is responsible for and discussing what happens if one of you wants to get out. So it's especially important if one of them is providing more down payment than the other. And so that would be one thing to discuss, and who is responsible for the costs and maintenance, and what happens if somebody has a career setback or falls ill and cannot pay their share. And so all of those things would be discussed and outlined. And so a co-ownership agreement makes resolving the dispute easier and less expensive. And so it might say in there, for example, that you would go to mediation before a lawsuit can be filed. So that often prevents a minor dispute from becoming years long of a legal battle. And even if it does become a lawsuit, it can be less expensive because the agreement is going to set out your rights and gives the attorneys less to argue about. So I think that that's something that in our high-priced area and that kind of thing that you might want to look at. And I know, like I was reminded, I was looking at something this week that I was reminded of a lady that I worked with years ago. And she bought a house in 2010, and her dad actually was on the deed with her in doing that. And then she got some roommates, I know, and helped her, pay for things and that kind of stuff. But the ownership was still in her family with her and her dad and that kind of thing. And so it just comes down to everybody's different, but this is an alternative. But I think it's really important to have that co-ownership agreement so that everything is all in black and white and everything is done up front so that you do know where you're at, what you're doing, and if it is a good thing for you or not. And you could definitely make that decision and have everything, lined out. So I think that would actually be really good. One thing that I wanted to talk about today, and I'm glad I have a little bit of time, is that the homeowner insurance costs fell in the fourth quarter of 2024. Now, not a lot. It fell 0.7%, but I think that that's good news from everybody. The average premium went from $3,668 to $3,644. Like I said, not a lot, but everything helps. So that was just for the quarter. And basically, since January of 2024, 17 companies filed for rate decreases and 34 requested no change or no increases. So I think that's pretty awesome as well. And condominium units, actually, they're going down as well in regards to what their insurance costs are. They went down by 1.7% from $1,737 to $1,707. Not a lot, again, but it's heading in the right direction, finally. And the other thing that's good news is average premiums paid by condo associations in the fourth quarter fell for the second straight time by 2.5%, following a decline of 3% between the second and third quarters. So the cumulative decrease was 3% between the second quarters of 103% between the second quarters of 2022 and 2024. So pretty awesome in regards to what's going on. So I just think that that's good news for everybody in regards to insurance in Florida. And, the legislature did get involved, and they there were some things that they were doing in regards to lawsuits was really the big problem in regards to what was causing a lot of these increases. It wasn't the storms like everybody thinks. It was the lawsuits that were happening and the claims as a result of it. So good news on that forefront in Florida. So a lot of great news today. And it just comes down to where do you want to call home, and we help you get you there. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.